How's it going, everyone? It is Anime Outlet, and this is part 7 of What If Deku Was a Phoenix. And now, let's begin. We see Izuku walk down a long, narrow strip of concrete as he ends up arriving at the front of All Might's hero agency. He would stare up, looking at it with stars in his eyes, as finally the big, muscular person that was known as All Might would step out, greeting the young hero in training. "Good morning, Izuku. It's nice to finally have you here," he would say before bringing him over towards where they were going to just be training. All Might would bring Izuku into a martial arts room where he would be just training Izuku in his abilities, even bringing in the young hero Hawks to help Izuku with his wings. As Hawks would end up coming in, he would teach Izuku how to use his wings appropriately, and even teach him how to mimic how Hawks just brings out his feathers and can shoot his feathers like bullets. Izuku would do this as would end up learning how to do so, just basically mimicking the movements of Hawks, as we end up seeing All Might then take Izuku out onto the streets, basically just to get some level of experience. We end up seeing Izuku just on the streets, following All Might around, staying back behind, watching as All Might would take down multiple thugs at a time because of his insane strength. The number 3 hero Hawks would also be following behind them, just basically helping Izuku learn as well. As Hawks saw a lot of himself in the young boy, and he wanted to make sure Izuku would end up becoming the best hero he could, with a quirk that was just so similar to his own. So he would try to teach him the best he could as well. So with that, on the final day, All Might would end up bringing Izuku out for just a real experience, as they would end up just rushing around just different places, and even going on the subway to just travel around long distances that would have tired them out with energy they could be using against villains. So we now end up seeing both of them on a subway that is just going above ground, or sort of a metro. As it would be traveling above ground, all of a sudden an explosion would occur, sending Izuku flying out of the car. As Izuku would end up hitting the ground, you would see the metro cars had been derailed. With him on the ground and his vision blurred, his ears ringing, he would end up wobbling, standing up, putting a hand to his head, trying to focus his vision. Ugh, what was that? Izuku would say, looking around, seeing a fire in the distance, as there stood someone standing in front of him. "Good morning, Izuku," he would say, staring towards him. "Well, should I say good evening? My entire mind has been screwed up since I've been training for so long. But it doesn't really matter. You see, I've been studying your quirk, as we have quite the similar quirk after all. Mine's fire is just a little bit hotter than yours, but that doesn't mean everything. Look, I've been studying you just to make sure there was practically zero chance I would lose against you. I'm just here to say, the boss has told me your potential, and power of course, can rival even the gods. So, I've come to kill you before you can reach your true potential. As if that were to happen, disastrous consequences would follow. So, what do you say, Izuku? Are you gonna let me kill you, or what?" The person would end up saying as Izuku would stare towards him. Laughing, Izuku would end up staring on towards him. "Well, I'm not gonna go down that easy," Izuku would say, standing up further, straightening his back, cracking his knuckles. "Well, I guess you deciphered that there's really no chance of you being able to get away if you decided to run. Good. At least you're catching on. Well, but it's not like it matters. You're about to be dead in around 5 minutes. So, let's begin." The person would say, launching himself towards Izuku, blue flames in his hands. He would slash towards Izuku as his wings would protect him. That's not gonna work on me. You should have known that if you've been studying me, Izuku would say, headbutting the stitched-faced man. As he would stumble backwards, he would get up, sending a torrent of fire right on towards Izuku. Come on, you've got to be stronger than that, Izuku would say, as the person would not care at all, launching right back towards Izuku as his flames end up just being blown right into Izuku's face, as a minor burn would end up being left right onto his face. You see, Izuku had an immunity to fire, but as it got hotter, his immunity would be less and less likely to actually be effective. So with that, this hot blue fire would burn Izuku on multiple occasions, depending on what part of the body it would hit him from, and also how powerful that blue fire happened to be, in temperature-wise. So with that, Izuku would end up just powering up once again. With his wings flailed, he would send feathers just jumping towards the stitched-faced man, as the man would end up dodging all of these feathers, with Izuku then scrunching his hand down into a fist. All of those feathers would turn at a sharp angle before going right back at that person. He would duck down before smiling. Come on, Izuku. Guess you finally earned just my respect for an introduction. I'm Dabi, alright? So, now it's time to get real. He would say, cracking his fists before rushing towards Izuku. His hands in the air, he would slam both of them down into Izuku's chest, sending him flying upwards as flames would continue to bombard the boy. Izuku would be sent flying upwards, slamming into one of the buildings behind, going right through the glass. He would fall down to the ground with his hero costume burned, and just handprints of burns on his stomach. Izuku would get up, just wincing in pain, before rushing back towards Dabi, who would strike him down. That's not gonna work again, you see, he would say, stomping his head down into Izuku's face, as he would end up digging his foot into the side of Izuku's face. His cheek would hunch up in pain, as his wrists would be balled into fists. Izuku would try to get up, only to be slammed back into the ground. That's not gonna work, you know. I've already got you locked down. You're not escaping from here, Dabi would say. Izuku would grin to himself, or he would end up disappearing completely, only leaving a tiny little bird. What the hell? Dabi would say, before hundreds of them would appear out of nowhere, flocking upwards, as all of a sudden they would turn into a massive, beautiful phoenix. As the phoenix would stare towards Dabi, its eyes would glow a vivid orange, as it would stare towards him with a malice grin on his face. You could tell there wasn't good intentions on that face. There really just seemed like whatever was going to happen, it wasn't going to be pretty, that's for sure. It would look down towards Dabi before it would swipe with its wings, as all of this and multiple volcanoes would sprout from under the ground, as the concrete and cement would just be rooted upwards, as these volcanoes would start spewing magma and hot molten rock everywhere. Izuku making sure that no civilians at least, were around. With this magma, it would end up going right, seeping towards Dabi's feet. He would make sure to dodge it each time, but the magma continued to spread. As this would be happening, Izuku would appear from right behind him, creating more volcanoes, cornering Dabi. He would create fire around his feet as to hopefully protect him. So he would try to walk across the lava. It would burn right through his fire, burning his feet, as his feet would catch fire. His legs would soon catch fire, as it would spread through his entire body. As Dabi would fall into the magma, sinking down to the bottom, completely just being burned alive. Izuku would fall down to the ground, breathing heavily, as that was only the second time he had ever used that form. With Dabi now dead, all of a sudden a blue-haired person would be standing right behind him, with the grip over Izuku's neck. Wow, I'm impressed. You managed to kill Dabi. Great job. Too bad you're not going to live much longer. This hold would be just completely surrounding Izuku's neck, with 4 fingers lining the edges of his skin. Izuku's wings would all of a sudden appear out of nowhere, just completely startling Shigaraki, sending him backwards. He would lose his grip over Izuku. Izuku would drop his shoulder, turning around, looking on towards the blue-haired menace, now just on the ground before him. Izuku would take a step as Shigaraki, in a vulnerable position, would just scoot backwards. You made a mistake messing with me, Shigaraki, Izuku would say, raising his hand as fire would sparking into it. As he would go to send his fire down towards Shigaraki, all of the sudden a hand would appear right around Izuku's wrist, causing his fire to diminish. Now, that's not really... That wouldn't be too good if you were to do that, you know, a strong voice would say. Izuku would end up turning his head around. The voice sounded kind of like All Might's and how confident the person sounded, but at the same time it sounded nothing alike as well. Izuku would turn his head around before staring up at a look-alike of Darth Vader. As Izuku would see this helmet with just pipes connecting all around the person's body, Izuku would try to jump backwards, but the grip was too strong. You're gonna kill one of my just people beneath me, and you're about to kill another one. You see, that's not gonna go too well, you know. I can't just have you kill 2 people without any consequences. You have to understand, after all, Izuku. As you know the system, don't you? Izuku would look questionably towards the man in a suit, as the man would only just laugh. Well, either way, your entirety of your friends, family, and just loved ones, they're about to all die. And it's because of me. How does that make you feel, Izuku? Huh? How does it? I mean, you haven't seen any of their bodies yet. Just be glad you're not going to see their mangled and torn up limbs scattered across the floor of the UA dorms. Or see your teacher, your mother. What about that, huh? How does that make you feel? Izuku would stare wide-eyed towards the man, kind of confused. What was this guy going on about? Was he just rambling, or was his words true? It confused Izuku a tad bit, as he honestly didn't know what to think. However, all of a sudden, All Might would jump down out of nowhere, punching All For One off of Izuku. Stand down, All For One, All Might would say in a loud voice echoing throughout the roadway. As All Might would walk towards All For One would get up, brushing his suit off. It's a pleasure meeting you here, All Might, isn't it? So, is this the final battle between us? Because if it is, one of us is for sure going to die. But who's that going to be? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be me? Questions for a couple of minutes from now. So, why don't we finish this like civil people? You would say as All Might would only glare towards him. Enough of this! He would yell, as he would rush towards All For One, going for a punch. As his punch would fly right towards All For One's face. All Might. Why don't you go take a look at your successor? My successor? What? He would turn around to see his Uku just deteriorating into dust, with Shigaraki's hand right around Izuku's neck. And that is where part 7 of What If Deku Was a Phoenix comes to an end. I hope you all did enjoy it, and if you did, please consider subscribing, as it really does help this channel out, and you can even be notified when the other parts of this series do end up coming out. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.